In the background of Job, and perhaps in the mind of its author, are other ancient Near Eastern dialogues between a sufferer and a friend, or else a sufferer complaining that their god or goddess has deserted them. And in a way, one can see, particularly in the first speech of Eliphaz, sort of the pattern that is expected in these dialogues between a sufferer and a friend. One of these is called the Babylonian Theodicy, and in it the sufferer makes a lot of complaints about his suffering and the fact that the god or the goddess has deserted him. And the friend tries to get the sufferer to sort of ask for help from the god or the goddess. So, for example, these are just a few excerpts. It is a much longer document. But the sufferer says, "Hearken to me, but for a moment, hear my declaration. My body is shrouded, craving wears me down. My assets have vanished, my resources dwindled, my energies have turned feeble, my prosperity is at a standstill. Moaning and woe have clouded my features. The grain of my mead is nowhere near satisfying me. Beer, the sustenance of mankind, is far from being enough. Can a happy life be a certainty? I wish I knew how that might come about." And the friend, as far as we can tell from a somewhat fragmented text, encourages the sufferer to turn to the god or the goddess in prayer and ask for help. As to your everlasting, unremitting desire, the foremost protection, presumably, is in prayer. The reconciled goddess turns to, perhaps, a sufferer. The reconciled gods will take pity on the fool, the wrongdoer. Seek constantly after the rights of justice. Your mighty god or goddess will surely show kindness, will surely grant mercy. The sufferer also says, "Those who seek not after a god can go the road of favor. Those who pray to a goddess have grown poor and destitute." So he's sort of contesting what the friend says. "Indeed, in my youth, I tried to find out the will of my God. With prayer and supplication I besought my goddess. I bore a yoke of profitless servitude. My God decreed for me poverty instead of wealth. A cripple rises above me. A fool is ahead of me. Rogues are in the ascendant. I am demoted." The friend argues that this is blasphemy. "Adept scholar, master of erudition, you blaspheme in the anguish of your thoughts. Divine purpose is as remote as innermost heaven. It is too difficult to understand. People cannot understand it." Eventually, after a long dialogue of this back and forth, with the sufferer complaining and the friend encouraging the sufferer to return to the god or the goddess, the sufferer finally says, "May the God who has cast me off grant help. May the goddess who has forsaken me take pity. The shepherd Shamash will pasture people as a god should." So read this in light of Eliphaz's first speech, and you will see that Eliphaz is basically trying to get Job to do the same thing. There is another related wisdom text called A Man and His God. It is Sumerian, which is even older. "My God, the day shines bright over the land, but for me the day has darkened. The bright day has dawned upon me like a misty day. Tears, lament, anguish, and depression are lodged within me. Suffering overwhelms me like a weeping child. In the hands of fate, my features had been changed, my breath of life had been carried off. Asag, the evil one, bathes in my body. In the bitterness and misfortune of my path, I never see a good dream. Daily false dreams do not cease haunting me." Never has a sinless child been born to its mother. A mortal has never been perfect, a sinless man has never existed from old. My God, after you have let my eyes recognize my sins, I shall recount at the city gate those of them that have been forgotten, and those of them which are visible. I, the young man, shall publicly declare my sins before you. Note that in the friend's speech they say something similar about never has a sinless child been born to its mother. There is a parallel here. And then this one ends with the man, his God verily heard his bitter weeping. After the heart of his God became soothed toward the young man at his prolonged lamentation and wailing, the true words, the artless words uttered by him, his God accepted. His words of supplication, which the young man expressed, and the pure prayers, pleased the flesh of his God like fine oil. Thereupon his God withdrew his hand from the evil matter. This again is the pattern that the friends are perhaps thinking of. We have another one, Old Babylonian, the dialogue between a man and his God. A young man was imploring his God as a friend. He was constantly supplicating. He was praying to him. His heart was seared. He was sickened with his burden. His feelings were somber from misery. He weakened, fell to the ground, prostrated himself. His burden had grown too heavy for him. He drew near to weep. My Lord, I have debated with myself, and in my feelings of heart, the wrong I did I do not know. Have I, perhaps, done a vile forbidden act? And then presumably the God responds, He brought him to earth. He has anointed him with medicinal oil, food, and covered his blotch. He attended him and gladdened his heart. He ordered the restoration of his good health to him. And the God says, Your disease is under control. Let your heart not be despondent. The years and days you were filled with misery are over.